This is the second year game project that we did as a class in collaboration with the animation program students. They created all the arts and the assets for this project, while us game program students were responsible for all the implementations of the game itself. I myself worked mostly on the vehicle and its physics and mechanics, but I also did a bunch of little things that goes into this demo as well. S- Um, so I'll explain a bit more in detail about the vehicle. But for now, I'll just give a brief tour of a few of the things that I did in this demo. So just for start, we can choose the vehicle that we want, the left and right. That's a simple function that I implemented. And then we can just enter the map directly. So this vehicle is actually a raycast vehicle, which was an idea that I took from a tutorial on YouTube, and then I expanded on it. I'll probably give a link down below. Um, the physics of the vehicle I wrote entirely in C++. Um, you can move forward, reverse, just like any other vehicle. Um, you can also jump. And you can also throw bombs just as a bonus. And you die if you fall out of bound. So I'll explain a bit more in detail about the vehicle later. For now, we'll just go through this. So we also implemented quite a few obstacles along the way. I didn't implement these ones in particular. My classmates did this. These are pretty cool. Oil slicks and rocks that damages your health. These few pickup items I implemented myself because since I worked on the vehicle, I have an easy access to all the vehicle stats. So for example, this green one increases your health if you look at the health bar on the bottom left. It increases your health, and then the purple one is to slow down your speed if you hit it, so it's kind of like a debuff. The green one up ahead is actually an accelerator, so if you hit it, you'll speed up for some time. It was just a simple stats implementation since I had easy access to the vehicle stats itself. Now up ahead is a spring mushroom. Oh yeah, the tornado. So a classmate of mine actually worked on the tornado, the first version of tornado, and then later I implemented the functionality where the tornado would actually vacuum all the vehicles that goes or is falls within near enough vicinity of the tornado itself. Okay, so back to the spring mushroom. So up ahead are spring mushrooms that if you collide with it, it'll push you up. The upward push might be a little overkill there, but and the idea is to it's more of a trap, not really much of a help, but just a trap there. Oh. Yep, the boulder damages you, and if you get hit enough time, you'll die. And then the last thing that I wanted to show, it's the portal or the warp gate up ahead. We can start see the portal from here. So I just implemented this quick function to pretty much any vehicle that would collide with the portal will instantly be teleported back to the starting line, essentially completing the loop of the racetrack itself. Yep. So this is the vehicle, and this is actually a combination of both the blueprint and the C++. This vehicle is composed of mainly two major components, first of which are the four thrusters here that are placed on each of the wheel of the vehicle. And this is what I like to call a hover component. And what it does is it propels the vehicle off of the ground, so that as to avoid the friction that exists inside the Unreal Engine. Just going straight into the hover components. Right now it's being put into the function timer at a set time that we can set. And inside that function, just to briefly summarize it, what it does is it draws a line trace from the origin, which is the bottom of the wheel, towards the ground, and at set distance. So the distance we can set to however long we need it to be. And suppose the line trace detects a ground collision, it will return how far away the collision occurs, and then from there it will run the calculations and produce the necessary force to propel the vehicle upwards as to avoid the ground through the add force at location here. And that's just really the quick dirty summary of this hover components. This is the one that I got from the tutorial earlier. And the other major component of the vehicle is the physics component, which determines how the vehicle should move, and that's mostly written in C++. So how that was implemented here is I wrote all the functions that would possibly be needed all in C++. So the C++ has all the setters and negators that you could possibly need from the vehicle class itself, and this would serve as the base class for all the future iteration of the vehicles. For example, the accelerate function takes in an input value, that's the access value, and from there, depending on how much of the input is being sent here, it will calculate the force necessary to move the vehicle forward, and then that's also based on the current position of the vehicle and the current angle rotation and whatnot. And at the end of that, it'll pass the calculated velocity directly into the set physics linear velocity built-in functions of the Unreal Engine. And suppose there's no input, so an input of 0, it will determine how fast should the vehicle decelerate, or how fast should it stops. And that's all in one function. I also have a turn function, which determines how fast and how quickly or how accurately the vehicle would turn. And also if the vehicle is turning or reversing, which way should it reverse depending on the input that's given. And other functions like handbrake, that's for drifting, jump, and the respawn here, actually my colleague wrote the respawn functions here, so this was all his work. And so after writing all this functionality within the C++, what happens is that that code is being directly transformed into blueprints inside the Unreal. So the C++ gets converted into the blueprint, at which point that blueprint is being used as a base blueprint for all the future vehicles, and like this. And so to call on those functions that exist in the C++ earlier, we put or we called those functions from a player controller blueprint. In this case, it's called a vehicle controller, and from there, we call all the functions necessary to move the car and connect it with the inputs, like so. other parts of this vehicle in the event graph here, uh, this vehicle base class, besides having the C++ implementation, what it's responsible for in this blueprint here is really just to initialize all the things that would be part of this blueprint, such as the hover components and the audio and the UI. And besides that, it on the tick it would just run some checks, so ground checks to see if the vehicle is currently on the ground or not, or a health check if to just to see where the health is at, and that's it.